Hello, church. Okay, so this is take two. Just did all of this a second ago on Facebook Live, and it did not take. I don't know about everyone else, but our internet has been very spotty since everyone in the world is home, and probably almost all of them are on the internet. So, just one of those things, I guess. But maybe it's for a purpose, and maybe I'll think of something else that you're supposed to hear this time. So, one of the things that I thought was funny about this is I had planned on talking about John 21 today, and Come Together tonight, we were planning on doing John 21. But if you watched our service yesterday, Donnie pretty much covered that. Did a fantastic job, took everything I was going to say. So, but I think it worked out for the best because I felt like I was supposed to share this with you guys, and it's, in my opinion, it's pretty encouraging. So we'll be looking at Psalm 22, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the first few verses of it we're going to look at. So this is David, and he says in verse 1 through 5, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me and from my words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but you do not hear, and in the night season am not silent. But you are holy, enthroned in the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in you. They trusted, and you delivered them. They cried to you, and were delivered. They trusted in you, and were not ashamed. So there's a few things about this that really stuck out to me. One is David was super honest about his feelings and feeling forsaken and alone and like God wasn't listening. And we've all had those feelings at one point or another. But for whatever reason, as Christians, we just, we get this holiness thing that we feel like we cannot tell God how we're really feeling. And that's not what he wants. He wants us to be open. He wants us to be honest and tell him exactly how we're feeling. He made us to feel like, have feelings. And he wants us to talk to him about those feelings. So that David did that, I think, is an example of something that we should take from that we should be open with our feelings and tell God, especially when we feel forsaken and isolated. And this is a time where a lot of people are feeling forsaken and isolated because everybody's alone. Nobody's around people ever. You're not allowed to be around people. And that's tough. And we need people, and it's hard to get through that without it. So it's very important that we tell God exactly what's on our heart and how we're feeling, so that he can help us with that. And the other thing was that regardless of how he was feeling, even in that really dark place of where he was, he still chose to praise God because God is holy. He said, even though he feels forsaken, he says, but you are holy. No matter what, no matter how I feel, what breaks down, the bad things that happen, God is still God and God is still holy. And that is something that we need to take away from this, that even in those places, this is where God is. And it's important to recognize that. And there's a lot of power in praising God even when you don't want to. When we have worship music playing and when you're seeking out God's presence, God will meet you and he'll show up. And worship changes things. Even Saul in the Old Testament, when he was being tormented by demons, called for David to play worship music, and the demons left and let him sleep in peace. And Saul wasn't really serving God at the time. So it's, worship is powerful, and it can impact the way that, even just the way that we perceive things. It's very important. And if you don't know worship songs, or you need some direction there, the Rooted YouTube page that's new, we have a playlist set up where we've been adding worship songs to it. So if you want some ideas for worship, you can go to the Rooted YouTube page to search Rooted Church Ross. And under our playlist, there's one called Worship, and there's all kinds of awesome worship songs if you need help to just have it playing in the background as you're going about your day. So the way that we've been doing our days is we get up in the morning, we do our chores, then we do school. And while we're doing school and our chores, we have worship music playing the whole time. And it really like keeps everybody in a very positive mind. And the couple days where I forgot to turn it on wasn't the same. Definitely, we're not good into that, but it was not the same. So I think it's important, and it's a powerful tool at our disposal. One of the other things that I think we should take away as a lesson from David was he reflected back on the previous blessings of God. So he talks about how our fathers trusted in you. They trusted you and you delivered them. They cried to you and were delivered. They trusted in you and were not ashamed. So one of the things when we're in a trial or a tough situation is to think back on the things that God has brought us through already. And yes, this situation is not ideal. It's not. But what has God done for you before in non-ideal situations? And looking back at that, it makes it a little more like, oh yeah, God, you provided there. Yeah, you'll provide again. I know I can trust you. Like, we'll look back at these previous blessings and know this is going to happen again. My God will provide, no matter what. So he reflected back on previous blessings, even to previous generations, how God had blessed their previous generations. The other thing that I wanted to take away from this is, it's probably come up at some point in the last week, of all of the church videos and stuff that you've watched, that these words at the beginning of Psalm 22 were also said when Jesus was on the cross. He said the same thing. My God, why have you forsaken me? Feeling that same feeling. I think it reinforces the fact that, one, Jesus was human and he knows all of our feelings, which makes his sacrifice just that much greater, that he experienced everything that we have experienced. And then connecting that to David, like the darkness that David must have been feeling when he wrote this, really shows like how deep that went. That if this is the same thing Jesus is saying on the cross with everything that he was going through, it's the same thing that David is saying, like, what was he going through? And I tried to find that, I usually try to find in the Psalms, like, what was going on in David's life when he wrote them. And there's lots of things that it could have been with this one. I couldn't find any one specific answer, lots of guesses of what people think. But there are lots of moments where he could have felt like this, based on things that happened in his life. And I think there's a lot of things going on in our lives today that could make us feel like this. And if we can take away, I'm not saying that we're David, I'm not saying that, but if we can take away the lessons that he did to get through it by praising God and reflecting on his previous blessings, I think that can make a big difference in how we get through this, and not just getting through it, but growing through it and getting to be closer to God through all of it. So I hope that you guys have a blessed week. We love you, and if there's anything that you need as far as prayer or anything like that, please send us a message or a comment, and we would love to help you and pray with you. So we love you guys.